Hi, everyone. How'd you like $1 billion? How'd you like to pay me $2 to get that $1 billion? That sounds like a pretty good deal. What if I told you the odds of me giving you that $1 billion was 300 million to 1 against me giving you that money? Would you still give me the money? Well, this is a decision that a couple of weeks ago a lot of people made when they decided to participate in the Mega Millions $1.5 billion jackpot prize. And a lot of people bought tickets. So this talk isn't so much just about the people who buy tickets. It's also about why do states offer lotteries in the first place? After all, aren't lotteries just gambling? And should states be involved in the gambling business? We often think about states maybe protecting us from certain things when these decisions might lead to some bad outcomes. But yet we see 44 states, and we see countries around the world where governments offer lotteries for their residents. So why do they do this? Well, that's what this talk is about today, those states that provide those lotteries as well as the people who buy those tickets. So I'm going to start with the United States. That's actually what this talk is primarily about, are lotteries in the United States. And in the United States, we have a long experience with states offering lotteries. Back in the 1800s, many states offered lotteries, but by the end of the 1800s, the US government actually banned lotteries, or effectively banned them with some legislation. So we started seeing lotteries being offered again in the 1960s. And you can see up here on this table that in the 1960s we have New Hampshire and New York that started offering lotteries. And then in the 1970s, the early 1970s, was the first wave of additional states adding them in the East Coast and some Midwest states like Ohio, Michigan, Illinois. And then in the late 1980s, states started spreading west and south, offering lottery products. So today, there are 45 states. Mississippi just added a lottery this year, or will be selling lottery tickets soon. 45 states that offer lotteries. So let's talk about the 5 that don't. So 3 reasons that states don't tend to offer lotteries. First of all, for religious reasons, which include Alabama and Utah. We think about Nevada, who likes to protect their industry and casino industry. And then we think about 2 states that don't really have much competitive pressure. In other words, states right next to them where their residents might want to buy lottery tickets from. And these 2 states are Alaska and Hawaii. So those are the 5 states that don't. Well, what about the states that do? Why do they start offering lotteries? Well, the reason for that is fairly simple. They need the money. There's a lot of fiscal pressure on states today to try to come up with more revenues, and taxes are hard to pass. People don't like new taxes, and so lotteries are a way to try to gain new revenues. So how much revenue do lotteries tend to gain for states? Well, I want to talk about one state in particular, and since we're in Illinois, let's talk about the state of Illinois. As you can see by this graph, that lottery ticket sales tend to support or tend to be used in 4 different ways. A lot of the money, the blue area on this graph, goes back out to pay lottery prizes. And this is a big chunk of money. This is about 64% of the money. About 5% goes to paying for the operations of the lottery. 6% goes back to stores that sell the tickets. And that leaves 25% that goes to the state. So is that a lot of money? Well, it's about $700 million. So not bad. Is it a lot of money, though? Well, for the state of Illinois, that's about 2% of their revenues in 2017. So yeah, it's a lot of money, but it's not enough money to replace taxes. It's not enough money for the state to run. And it's not enough money for a lot of states to do those things. But it is something, right? And it does help us not necessarily have to increase taxes, which we have to pay. And lotteries, after all, are choice. We don't have to participate in lotteries if we don't want to. So I want to think now about where does this 25% go? How do states spend their lottery dollars? And so about half the states, they tend to take that money and put it into their general revenue, which means states can do with it what they want to do with it. In Illinois, those lottery dollars are earmarked for specific purposes. And in Illinois, those purposes are either education or spending on capital projects like roads. Education, in fact, is the biggest winner of lottery dollars. For states that earmark their money, education is the single biggest winner of those dollars. So is education really a big winner? Well, it would be, for example, in Illinois, if those $700 million flowed in addition to what else they would receive. But what states tend to do is they see that those lottery dollars are going to be added to funding for particular programs, and then state legislators provide less money in terms of other funds. We call this fungibility. The idea that dollars for revenue for some particular programs can be substituted. So education is a winner. They are certainly getting more money, but it's not as much money as they otherwise would get. And why do we see education as the big beneficiary anyway? Well, I believe there's two reasons for this. One, lotteries are hard to pass legislatively. So when states decide they want to have a lottery, they need to have support by the residents within states. And sometimes people are concerned about the gambling aspects of this. So they need to convince their voters that in fact the money is going to go to a good purpose, like education. And once the lottery is passed, they also need people to buy tickets. And guess what? If I'm going to buy a lottery ticket, I might feel a little bit better about losing that money if I know it's going to go to a good cause, like education. So I think it's twofold why we see education as being supported a lot by these lottery dollars. Now let's think about the other side of the market. So I talked a little bit about states that provide lotteries and what they do. Let's think about people who buy the lottery tickets. So economics literature has a few different findings on people who buy tickets, but there's certain things that they tend to agree on. Number one, people who tend to buy lottery tickets are more likely to be male than female. They're more likely to be Hispanic or black. They're more likely to be lower educated. And they're more likely to be lower income. And I want to talk about this last one a little bit. If the lottery were a tax, and we saw lower income households spending more of their money relatively on the tax than higher income households, we would call this tax regressive, and we would be very concerned about that. Now, we do need to keep in mind that lottery ticket purchases are not compulsory. People don't have to spend their money on lottery tickets if they don't want to. And in fact, I think it makes a lot of sense that lower income households would want to spend more money on lottery tickets. It makes a much big difference in their lives if they win that money than middle income or higher income households who rely on other forms of income and aren't looking for that money to be life-changing. And this is also supported in the literature by studies that look at who spends money on what types of lottery products. For example, we find that scratch tickets, those instant tickets where you can find out instantly if you're a winner or not, that don't pay very high prizes, that those tend to be more regressive in nature. Lower income households tend to buy those more than higher income households. But when we look at the lotto-style games, like the Mega Millions I talked to you about, like Lotto Illinois, like the other big lotto games that roll into the tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and billions of dollars, that's what attracts higher income households. So these lotto games tend to be more progressive in nature as opposed to regressive, and actually brings in tax dollars, if you want to call them tax dollars, from higher income families. So what sort of challenges do lottery agencies and state governments face today with their lotteries? Well, one of the biggest challenges that they face is continuing to get people to buy tickets. So when states first introduce lotteries, people get excited about it. Oftentimes, some of these people would have been buying lottery tickets from states across the border, and so they're really happy to have these lotteries now in their states. But over time, we have this characteristic called lottery apathy, where people tend to lose interest. And even with these jackpot prizes in the hundreds of millions, and we see Mega Millions again and Powerball reaching the billions of dollars, that people were excited about it originally, but you know, you can only continue to lose so often until it finally starts discouraging you from buying tickets. And we call this jackpot fatigue, the idea that people do see the high jackpots, but they just don't respond as much as what they used to. So what are states doing to respond to this, not declining demand, but just less interest among lottery ticket purchasers over time? Well, they've done a couple of things. One of the things that we've seen states do is they've reduced the odds of winning the lottery, which seems really odd. If people aren't buying lottery tickets because they're not winning, why in the world would you reduce the odds of winning in the first place? Well, the reason is, for those lotto-style games where the jackpots roll over, they roll over more if people don't win. So they roll over to bigger and bigger prizes, and Mega Millions, this is why it rolled over into the billion-dollar range, is because Mega Millions last year reduced their odds of winning in the hopes of attracting more ticket buyers. It was successful. Maybe not as successful as they hoped, but certainly people were talking about the billion-dollar prize. What else do states do? Well, Illinois has been one of the more innovative states. Again, Illinois has had a lottery since the 1970s, so they've had to try to be innovative in trying to keep the interest going. One of the things that Illinois has done, they were one of the first states to have online purchases of lottery tickets. One of the second things that Illinois has done is they have farmed out their management of their lottery to a private company rather than managing it themselves. And the idea of having a private company manage the lotto is that they will be more innovative in the things that they do, more innovative in promoting prizes, and hopefully also be able to run the lottery at a lower expense. Illinois has certainly seen some success with their online lotteries and seen sales there. They've had some mixed success on their private running of their lottery, for those of you who may have paid attention to the news. I'm going to leave you with this. I am very interested in all of these innovations that lotto companies are doing and that states are doing to try to innovate their lottery and keep people interested. As a researcher, I find this very important, and I find it very interesting what people would do in response to this. As a consumer, I'm not all that interested in buying lottery tickets. Frankly, I'd rather save my money for something else. But as a taxpayer, I really hope that all of you are very interested in what states are doing so that my taxes don't go up. Thank you very much.